If 2020 has taught retailers anything, it's the value in having an adaptable, successful omnichannel strategy. That's why Total Retail released its fourth annual Top 100 Omnichannel Retailers report. This report reveals the ranking of 100 leading retailers based on their omnichannel capabilities across 7 key criteria. Download this free resource to measure your company's omnichannel strategy against its competition. Go to mytotalretail.com/resources to download today.
Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail. Joining me today is Ron Thurston, who is the Vice President of Stores at INTERMIX, as well as the author of the new book, Retail Pride, the Guide to Celebrating Your Accidental Career. We're going to have Ron discuss his new book a little bit with us, tell us kind of his inspiration for writing it, and tell us about his career in the retail industry and all that good stuff. So thank you for joining me, Ron.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a big fan.
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. So, you've had a pretty, tenured career here in the retail industry. Why don't you give us, for context for the audience, a little bit of your professional background and, what you enjoy most about working in the industry?
Sure. Thank you. I'll start with the second half of the question of what I enjoy most, because retail is such an enormous industry, employing millions of people. It's where most Americans get their first jobs. It's part of just the biggest part of the economy of this country, and is often under-celebrated. So when I think about my career and I think about the other millions of people who work in retail, I really wanted to provide something for them that was kind of a source of inspiration. But to step back for myself, I started retail after studying both kind of retail management and fashion design at FITM in California. I'm from Northern California. And kind of the idea of starting in design was important to me because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be on the wholesale side, the retail side, the design side. I knew I wanted to be in this industry, but didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I actually started as a fashion designer, and did well, but I could tell that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And actually had a friend who worked at Gap Kids at the time. This was the early 90s. And said, this is a really exciting place to work, incredible training programs, and really looking as a great place to expand your career. So I joined the Gap, and actually Gap Kids when it was a separate company, and had an incredible first 10 years of my retail career. And I reflect back on that because great retail organizations invest in people, in training, in development, in mentorship, and coaching, and they really kind of brought me along from, assistant store manager with very little experience, to store managers, general manager, district manager. I worked in corporate visual. I oversaw all of the Southeast, and from there just built a career choosing really important brands who are at really kind of pivotal points in their career. So Tory Burch early on. I joined Apple right at the launch of iPhone 2, so now more than 10 years ago, and ran stores in Houston, and just continued to kind of choose great retail organizations, up to today at INTERMIX, which is also part of the Gap family of brands. So be able to come back and run one of the divisions of the company is pretty meaningful to me.
So you've kind of been brought up in the retail industry, Ron, and many experiences. You've kind of learned the ways of the industry, which leads me into your new book, Retail Pride, the Guide to Celebrating Your Accidental Career. Tell us a little bit about the new book, your inspiration for writing it. Give the audience some info about it.
Thank you. So the purpose of the book, the intent and kind of what inspired me to do it is, through this kind of 25 plus year career, I've opened dozens of stores. I couldn't even tell you how many. I've hired hundreds, if not thousands of people. I've done so many interviews, done hundreds of store visits. I've sat and really listened to kind of how my own company kind of thinks and acts, as well as just the industry overall and how people feel. And I came to this point last year of, there needs to be a resource or kind of a place where if I'm a new assistant manager, store manager, or sales, or really any other role, that a resource that would say, this is a great career, you've made a great choice, and it needs to be celebrated. And it likely is accidental, because that's the piece that I hear most often when I'm interviewing someone. I'll say, well, how did you end up in retail? And it was always, well, it was a part-time job. I started doing, I was studying something else and started working, at the Gap, for example, and then it turned into something very important, and they really fell in love with it, and it grew into a successful career. And so there are a lot of great leadership books. There are a lot of great, even kind of retail industry podcasts like this one and others. But I wanted to create something that was specifically for store teams, because that's the bulk of the population in the industry. So the book is really, the first part is about why we love working in retail. The second part are kind of the pillars of success. And then my own kind of retail leadership recommendations, or kind of what I consider like great retail leadership advice. And then kind of a what's next, like what are some things you can do to grow your retail career? So I really did purposefully call it the guide to celebrating your accidental career, because I do think that this is something that could be in the hands of anyone who works in a store in any part of the retail industry. It's not specific to apparel or luxury. It's for everyone that works in retail.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Ron. And to your point about, accidental career, whether it's a high school student as their first job, working part-time at a store in the mall or some other retail location, and then eventually they fall in love with the industry and start working, and build a career in that, which leads into the question about the book in terms of, what is the message that you want your readers of this book to come away with? And the second part to that is really, who is this book intended for? Is it, the retail store associate? Is it the executive? Maybe it's all of the above. Tell us a little about who you wrote the book for and kind of the message you want them to walk away with.
Yeah, so I really wrote it primarily for what I really thought, like the avatar, part of what they can teach you about in writing was, who is your avatar? Who is this person every day that you kind of sits in front of you that you're writing this book for? And for me, it was in kind of average volume, store manager somewhere in the country, maybe works in a mall, that maybe runs a $2-3 million store, who maybe has an education in something different and absolutely loves what they do and wants someone to tell them that it's okay. And that was the primary audience. But as I kind of peeled back the layers, exactly to your point, executives in companies that either are going to start opening retail, kind of a D2C brand, stores that may not have great access to a lot of people that work in stores. As a retail executive, you could pick up this book and say, wow, like the people who work in retail are really powerful and an important part of my business. And so when I think about that executive, I want them to have an understanding of kind of what brick and mortar can be and the culture that you can build. And on the store side, really celebrating the work that they do. And so as I stepped back and said, what do I want them to hear? I want them to hear that you are running a multi-million-dollar business. You have to be an expert in so many different aspects of a business, from visual merchandising, product expertise, whatever it is you're selling, HR, store operations, loss prevention, the list goes on, and you're often self-taught. And so you learn how to do this industry, not typically from going to school, but from doing the work, and to celebrate that work and to say, you need to surround yourself with great people. You need to build a great culture, work for great companies, and then continue to celebrate that pride with everyone around you.
So Ron, you mentioned as part of the book, one of the things you do is kind of look to the future. And obviously in this country and across the world, really, we're kind of in unprecedented times with the global pandemic, and which leads me to the question of what do you kind of foresee as you look ahead to the future of the role of the brick and mortar store and how it fits into a retail organization's future? Do you have thoughts there in terms of what we're looking at in terms of physical retail going forward?
I do. So there's continued news about the kind of growth of e-commerce and the kind of collapse of brick and mortar. But when you really dig into the facts, yes, brick and mortar is declining, and yes, e-commerce is growing, but the percent of business that's still driven through brick and mortar is significant. And the majority of business, so estimating this year, like 15% of all commerce will be done digitally. So that still leaves 85% brick and mortar. So they're estimating kind of an additional percentage point of growth on the e-commerce side. So even 5 years from now, it's estimated kind of 82% of all commerce done in brick and mortar. And that brick and mortar, again, could be grocery store to drugstore to department store to specialty luxury. It spans so many different parts of the business. But my point of view is brick and mortar will always be important. Brick and mortar is the place that has the greatest impact on the success of your brand. Brick and mortar is that interaction that can't be recreated on a website. It's the place where you fall in love with product. It's where, if you work in the apparel space, nothing replaces a great fitting room experience. If you work in tech, like I worked at Apple, nothing replaces speaking to an expert about technology. There's no point of any brand that doesn't have value in brick and mortar. And so while yes, we'll likely have fewer actual store counts and we'll likely have fewer malls, part of that is also an overbuilt kind of phenomenon that I played a part in too, as opening more stores. And so today they're really valuable. There may be fewer of them, which increases their value as a channel for your brand to continue to connect with the customer in a very unique way.
Given your point that that the vast majority of transactions still are taking place in store, obviously that's been a little bit of a challenge over the last 6 months during the pandemic. But leads me back into what do traditional physical retailers, such as your parent Gap Inc. and all the others that are out there in the market, what do they, in your opinion, need to do to kind of win back consumers, get them back into the stores, the messaging they need to do, the experience they need to be creating at their physical stores to get consumers to enter back, consumers who may be reluctant, considering not only the safety precautions that brands and retailers are taking, but their own experience. They've gotten to maybe for the first time shop via a website and they found it to be convenient and easy for them. What do you think that physical retailers need to be communicating and doing to get their customers back into their physical locations?
Sure. So I think to your point, the safety aspects have become kind of price of entry. You can't now have a non-safe environment. Whatever that kind of capacity levels are, whatever that looks like for you to be safe in your business, I think that's standard. I think go forward from a customer point of view, yes, they may have discovered your website and maybe they're new to brand. And so brands that are really recognizing the fact that I have much more of an omni business than I ever have before. I now have a customer that maybe only shopped in brick and mortar and now shopping online, to recognize that and encourage it and say, we want you to have an in-store experience as part of the ecosystem of the brand. We want you to have an e-commerce experience, and we want to have great delivery promises, and every touch point becomes an important part of the overall just experience, so to speak. So I think the brands that are discouraging e-commerce and saying we're only a brick and mortar business or didn't have an e-commerce business before are very much going to struggle. Brands that only had e-commerce and no brick and mortar will also struggle, because there's a point where you need to have an in-person experience, or maybe touch and feel and try on and all the things that we love. So for me, it's about merging all of it, encouraging all of it, bringing all of it together with new technology solutions, clienteling, online chat functions. There are so many great technology platforms now that create an omni experience that's best in class for so many brands. So I think we have to think differently. We have to think with a relevant point of view. We have to think how people are living and spending differently, and be relevant, be important, be kind of humble in the way that you approach it, and really grateful for the business, because it's not going to be easy. And every sale is an important part of how you continue to stay alive.
To your point, Ron, about the omni experience and kind of the integration of the channels, do you foresee, programs that have really picked up in consumer adoption and retailer adoption during the pandemic, such as curbside pickup?
Yeah.
To a lesser extent, and we were seeing this even before COVID was part of our mindset, buy online, pick up in store, ship from store. Do you see programs like this taking on even added importance and being even more critical to the future of physical retail?
I do. And part of the reason of that is, in the world where costs are being highly criticized, inventory levels are likely down. You're buying less inventory for fear of risk. So kind of that access to inventory across all channels is really important. And so the idea of inventory accuracy, live inventory, that I can buy online, pick up in store, I can do curbside, I can do chat, I can do consignment in the luxury world, I can do a variety of different things to kind of meet the customer where they want to go. And that's a big part of the adoption rates. I've seen huge increases in curbside kind of across the industry, even within my own family of brands. BOPUS to some extent, but in cities, not like here in New York, but in other cities where you can just kind of drive up and pick it up, versus waiting 2 days, 3 days, 2 weeks, is significantly growing. But I think that idea of things like chat, where I can create a store experience, at least initially, online, I've seen huge adoption rate increases there. And then at some point, you're like, well, this was great chatting. I'd definitely like to continue this. Like, let's get you into the store. So it's this merge of omni that's become so much more fluid, so much more relevant for brands, and just finding the solutions that work best for you. But you can't not participate in these today.
And my final question for you, Ron, is you mentioned as part of your book, one piece of it is giving sort of your professional advice to retail leaders on, where the industry is heading and what they need to do to best optimize their organizations, especially during these challenging times. Do you want to share with us maybe a piece of advice or two on what you might have said to retail leaders, what you want them to take away from your new book?
Of course. I want them first and foremost to just take a moment and be proud of what they do. The book title was very purposeful about retail pride, and pride is a very strong word and has so many connotations. But in retail is often, you say to yourself, "Oh, I just work in retail. I did it myself. Oh, I work in the mall." And your friends will say, "But when are you going to get like a real job? When are you going to stop working nights and weekends?" And I want the audience to say, I'm really proud to work in retail. I run a multi-million-dollar business. I lead a large team. I'm an expert in so many things. I am the most important part of the company that I work for. And that is a message that I think today more than ever needs to be said loud and clear. And I think on the corporate side, it's recognizing that this year particularly has been very challenging for stores. You're concerned about your own safety. The experience today is very strange. And to take a moment to also say thank you to the store teams who work in the field and who are engaged in things that they've never had to experience before. So I think thank yourself and be proud of what you do. And if you lead teams, to really take a moment today and say thank you.
Great. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Ron Thurston, the Vice President of Stores at INTERMIX, as well as the author of the new book, Retail Pride, The Guide to Celebrating Your Accidental Career. Thank you for joining us today on Total Retail Talks, Ron.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.
Total Retail's 2020 Top 100 Omnichannel Retailers Report reveals the ranking of leading retailers based on their omnichannel capabilities. Gain competitive insights into successful omnichannel strategies by downloading the report today at mytotalretail.com/resources.